some thought behind it here. And today I want to talk about egotistical apathy against consciousness, which I would define as self-centered lack of interest or enthusiasm or concern for the inner feeling or voice viewed as a guide to the rightness or wrongness of one's behaviors.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about what you call the guide to the rightness and wrongness of one's behaviors?
Well, when you look up conscious in the dictionary, that's how they define conscious.
Do you mean,
So
is that
what?
conscience or conscious? Like consciousness, or I have a, Jiminy Cricket conscience.
I get them confused too, but it's the conscious, the CONSCIENCE.
Conscience.
Okay.
Yeah, the Jiminy Cricket.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Got it.
Because I was going to say, wait a minute.
Okay.
There are people that are awake that don't do the right thing.
There's a little bit of back, like where this I started thinking about it. I worked with some people that were ultra religious. They're probably the most religious family I've ever met there. But I had a halfway interesting conversation with one of them where we started talking about the conscious, and he looked at me and he's like, God gifted you your conscious. And I looked at him, my response was, well, who gifted you your ego? And that was kind of the end of the conversation there. But that's where I really started to think about how the ego treats the conscious. And we have kind of a brain-heart separation at times there, where we don't listen to that inner voice or feeling enough. And so that's where I have thought towards that.
Have you ever had an inner feeling that turned out to be the wrong decision?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So should you always be listening to that inner feeling? Just as a rule, to just listen to that inner feeling, do what it says?
I don't myself, and I kind of like I have some inner guilt for not listening to my conscious and doing the right things when I'm conscious what the right thing is to do, and I listen to the other side. That it's easier to shy away from making those decisions or choices. So
okay,
yeah. Let me just clarify, when you're talking about this inner guide, what types of decisions or thoughts does it guide on? Like, oh, is it ethical for me to eat meat? Or like, oh, should I make this decision based on factual information level of guide? Like, what are we dealing with here?
Well, to me, the inner voice is having a relationship with your future self, or the person who you want to be or become, and that future person has the invested interest in your thoughts, actions, and behaviors right now. Because if you were to take an improper thought or action, it wouldn't just bring you to that state that you want to be at or who you choose to become. So that
okay. I think I understand you, but let me just clarify just a little bit more. So is Jiminy Cricket giving you like life advice in a broad sense, or is he, I know it's not literally Jiminy Cricket, right?
Actually, let's ask, do you think of that as separate from yourself?
Yeah.
I don't. It's hard to say. It's within, but I don't know if I identify it with at the moment there, and I think that's the problem.
So here is the inner voice related specifically to like a religious belief or claim?
Oh, it's related to want to be and who I believe my full potential is there, which is totally subjective. It's up to me to realize and find who I want to be and not others, kind of thing, right? So, like I said, that person in the future is totally a fiction of your mind there, and it's totally subjective. You can pick to go one direction or go a completely separate direction. But the in between, how do you get from where you're at now to where you want to be? That conscious or the for you hasn't.
Yeah. So actually, I think I understand you, and I think you and I may be actually very close in this, in that as far as motivating. This is the voice that tells you, no, you made a promise to this person, you should keep it, and also, no, you said you were going on a diet, don't eat the chocolate cake. Like as far as general principle advice and specific advice, but there's no like, no, the voice in your head says that, you know, I don't know. It's Pride Week that homosexuality is immoral or whatever, right? Like, as far as people trying to motivate themselves to get to the gym or do whatever, thinking about the decision that I make here is the beginning of a pattern of decisions, and if I decide that in this scenario I am going to not follow my diet, that means that the next time that this scenario comes up, I'm also not going to follow my diet. And then why did I tell myself I'm on a diet? Oh my gosh, Pride is next week. What am I doing? I bought an entire chocolate cake. Unrelated hypothetical story. But the point that I'm getting to is I think what we're trying to figure out is whether or not this relates like directly to a religion. And then also in the notes it says that there's an egotistical apathy towards God. Is this a God-related thing, or is it a human-related thing?
I substituted the word God for conscious.
Okay, so then let me ask the question again. Do you view this conscience, because conscious is your wakefulness, is what it means to be an acting agent.
And we get a lot of
your conscience, your Jiminy Cricket is thinking about whether something is right or wrong. So I'll ask again, your conscience or your Jiminy Cricket, do you think that is something that is separate from you, Kyle?
Yes.
Yes. How does it interact with you?
Well, they talk about collective conscious. And
no, well, hold on.
Okay.
Follow me. So how does it interact with you? Does it whisper in your ear? Do you hear voices? Is it a feeling?
Going on, right, of what we could do, and then like there's that inner battle, right? That's the ego is apathetic towards the consciousness, and the ego usually wins. So that's the interaction that we. I don't think it's unusual for me. I think it's quite common for humans to.
Well,
do you think that sorry, just as a clarify, do you think that your ego is also separate from you?
I think the ego is part of the brain. The consciousness is part of the heart. So
conscience.
That's how I read.
Yeah.
Please help me, or else I'm never going to be able to follow.
Whenever we get a caller,
let's just say Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah. Whenever we get a caller that brings up spirituality or consciousness, I always do my best to jump in just a little bit, because otherwise Eric is going to destroy them.
I can be nice,
in an
Jamie.
Entirely justified way based on the caller, not you, Kyle. You're doing great.
You seem good, man.
Yeah, you seem good. What I will say is, when you say one is part of the heart and one is part of the brain, like Eric asked you a moment ago if you believe that the conscience, wow. If you think Jiminy Cricket, sorry, the Jiminy Cricket is separate from you, or whether it's a cartoon construct in your mind that forms a part of your self-identity and thought process.
And whistles.
And whistles. I mean, he didn't use those words. He whistles? It's been too long since I've seen that movie.
You bastard. We're watching Pinocchio after this.
You promised to watch Mulan. God.
I watched Mulan,
Yeah, you watched Mulan without me.
Okay,
anyway,
well, that's go ahead.
Whether it was separate from you or part of your internal thought process, and I thought that you said that it was separate.
Well, it's complicated. It's kind of both in a way. Like that voice, it's very, like, to me, I think there's a possibility that there's quite a bit being said that we hold in and we don't speak to each other about, so we don't really get into the deeper side. And
Kyle, I love that, because this is when we get to talk about it. Isn't that fun?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
just as a quick aside, when you say that voice, do you mean that you hear a literal audible voice, like speaking to you as if it's in the room?
That's what I mean. And
wait, is that a yes? Sorry, I think I kept talking over the beginning of your answer. Do you hear like a literal audible voice? Like there is no difference in your perception of this voice. than in the perception of the voice of someone standing in the same room speaking to you? When I like talk to myself or think something through, I could say like, yeah, I'm talking to myself in my head, but it's different than if I hear Eric say that I'm awesome or something.
Hey, Jamie.
Yeah,
you're awesome.
Oh, sorry. Was that a yes or a no to just the audible voice part?
I would say halfway yes, audible, visual, and you kind of see.
Okay, so
what you're thinking. How
can you differentiate that from a hallucination?
I was going to say that is literally a hallucination.
Well, I mean,
no, an audible voice. Like it's one thing to think, oh yes, I'm hearing these words, but when I'm thinking this in my head.
But if he thinks it's not a hallucination, that's why I'm asking him. How can you differentiate between that and a hallucination?
Yeah, it's kind of funny to talk about there because, like, to talk about Jiminy Crickets, to put that term to it, is like to prove about Jiminy Cricket is like there's little proof that you know Jiminy Cricket kind of thing. So that's
well, we watched Pinocchio.
Like to prove that you don't have a consciousness or like
conscience.
Conscious. Sorry.
Conscience. There's an N. Conscience. Conscience.
It's hard for someone to prove that they have one, and in the same way as to prove that there is a God kind of thing. They're both non-physical, kind of things.
Well, it's kind of harder to prove that there's a God, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, it's also hard for someone to prove that they have Jiminy Cricket and they're listening to him.
Agreed, which is why we want to talk about it. And I mean, so I'd like to give you my personal view on it, right? I think that it's completely internal, that I have a gut reaction to a lot of things, and those things are based off of experiences in my life. Some of them may be based in a built-in response. You know, we have these things called mirror neurons. We have been evolutionarily adapted to empathize with each other, and based off of what we're experiencing and what we know about it, we come to the best conclusion that we can. And sometimes our gut response is not the same as the best response, right? And so when I think of that Jiminy Cricket, right, it's that rational part of me that doesn't always agree with the emotional part of me, but I always know that that's internal, right? I really want that chocolate cake, but shit, I just started going to the gym. Do I really want to do that? Do I really want to go to the gym, right? I mean, those things are all a part of me. I wouldn't say that it's an extrasensory, you know, outside of ourselves experience, because if that was the case, then I would be in the realm of delusions, because it would be much more likely that I was delusional than that I was experiencing an ethereal voice speaking to me, right?
Do you think if we were to write down what our Jiminy Cricket tells us separately and then bring those things that we write down together, that we'd find some common threads?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we live in the same world together, and I think that most of us have empathy, and so I would hope that most of those things would be similar. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that we are apathetic towards Jiminy Cricket? Do you think that we're
no, not at all.
No?
No, I try to be in tune with my emotions, and I try to be in tune with myself, my body, and the relationships I have with other people. I mean,
because I think
I do have a safe degree of separation wherein I don't always just make gut decisions, because they can be bad decisions, but I don't ignore that part of myself. Do you think most of us do that?
I think we got that inner battle going on there that lots of us struggle with, including myself. And I think when our ego is apathetic towards Jiminy Cricket, it's different than if we were compassionate towards it and caring for it, right? And so there's
I think I understand what you're saying, but the vocabulary that I would use to describe it is more taken from like a clinical context and is very different. So I know that we've used the word Jiminy Cricket to mean our conscience.
And Kyle, please don't think that I'm angry about the conscience thing. I do the same thing when people say irregardless, right? It's regarding or regardless. If you say irregardless, you doubled back to regarding, and I hate you just a little bit. But it's not it's not you. It's just
not you,
me being an asshole.
Yeah. So I
can speak just a little bit here because I was posed a question a few years ago there that got me thinking, and I kind of wanted to give you the question that was posed to me, but not really ask you that question because that one's not really what. But I'd rather
bring it on
the word.
Okay.
Original question, which I'm not really asking right now, is if we believe in a God there and we have a grievance or whatnot against him, is God wrong and man right, or is God right and man was wrong? And that was the original question, which that's not really what I'm asking. I'm asking is Jiminy Cricket wrong, the ego right, or is the consciousness right and the ego wrong?
Sure.
So I would say it depends on what the question that they were asked was and what answers they gave. But if you're talking about like moral judgments, one of the things that people do so for example, one of the examples that I've heard that comes to mind is there's a person changing in the gym and they need a new set of earbuds for their phone. And there's a set of earbuds laying there with no one nearby. They know that they shouldn't just take someone else's stuff. But one of the things that happens with human beings is they morally disengage from the decision is the thing. And so they decide to do the thing that is convenient rather than the thing that is correct. Right? It's like, it's one of the things that affects moral decision making.
And I'd like to piggyback on that. Mm-hmm. So this is actually something that people have been talking about for a very, very long time. Have you heard of the Euthyphro dilemma?
No, I'm not familiar, but I'm interested.
Okay. So there's a version of it that I feel is very applicable here, right? And the version has to do with morality and acting moral, right? And so the idea is, do we act moral because God, or in the in the dilemma, right? The gods say you need to, right? Are you doing it because you're told you need to be moral, or are you or are you being moral without it? Can you make a moral decision without it? And the follow-up there is, if you're doing moral things only because a deity is telling you to, that doesn't make you moral. That just makes you a follower. Right? And if you're doing things that are moral and making moral judgments without it, or you can deem something that deity is doing as immoral, then you're a moral actor on your own. You're able to make those decisions on your own, and you don't need a God. Right? So either you're not moral or you don't need God. Either way, it's kind of a tough place to be.
What if you're doing things to embody your full potential? Where does that fall into the spectrum?
Well, that would be not needing God, wouldn't it? If you're doing things in yourself, if you're making a moral choice, a moral judgment on your own, and you're not doing it because a deity is telling you to do it, then why do you need that deity to be moral in the first place?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would rather have a relationship with myself and
who says that those things are mutually exclusive? I have a relationship with myself. I love myself. I've learned to love myself, and that's taken many, many years, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. Well, to me, that's the point, right? Like, we need to not harm each other or harm ourselves, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So
pretty harmful.
Wouldn't it follow then that if you're doing that you're doing that not because a God is telling you, but because you want to? It sounds like you want to.
Yes, it's because I want to.
Okay. Cool. Then we're on the same page, man. Now, where I'd have to go from that is, why would you turn to a God to tell you what's moral if you already know what is?
I'm not turning really to a God. I'm turning more to myself there, but it's for.
Do you believe that a God exists?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I misunderstood. I thought you were replacing God with Jiminy Cricket, and so I may have mistook what you were saying.
Well, I substitute like the things because it's easier to speak about the consciousness than to speak about God, and I said it was kind of similar, just that they're non-physical in ways there, and they. I see some similarities, but it's not
sure. But I'm actually unsure in that sentence whether you meant consciousness or conscience. But in either case, I can say, but you can see the effect of this based on people's actions, right? So if a person is unconscious, they're not really. Hopefully, they're not running around doing stuff.
And you definitely wouldn't depend on an unconscious person to make a moral judgment.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I was just thinking about the inner battle and the disconnection between the mind and heart there, and it would be something else to end that battle and to kind of make them friends again, kind of thing there, have the ego and be compassionate and have some interest and show some concern for oneself, kind of thing there, where I self-sabotage all the time, and it's just listening to not my conscience or my Jiminy Cricket, sorry, and so that's where like I know that the battle is being waged everywhere within us, and how to put peace of mind and connect the mind and the heart is of interest to me.
I just want to stress to people who are watching, and stress to you, Kyle, that while that is important, you do need to have a line of separation, right? I'm somebody who battles with depression. I always have, and I always will. And with that said, there are times when I can be tempted to harm myself, and that's not a rational judgment. And because I have that separation, I recognize that that's my depression talking, right? And so I would say a healthy mix of those things. Oh, shit. Sorry, we just got new microphones in here, and I just smacked my microphone.
Yeah.
You need a healthy mix of those.
To have an uneven ratio, though, like to never let your Jiminy Cricket experience or live or love is to...
Here's devil's advocate now. What if you're a sociopath? What if you're unable to empathize with people and your Jiminy Cricket's telling you to kill? Should you listen to your Jiminy Cricket?
Well, those people put their Jiminy Cricket in a deep freeze where it can't really...
Actually, to the best of our ability, they'd have no choice. It's part of their biology. They don't do anything about it. It's just a part of them.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to blame their Jiminy Cricket. I would be blaming the egotistical voice inside them that tells them they're whatever. So,
I just advise rationality. That's all. I just advise balancing yourself with rationality and trying to make the best choice, and definitely doing what makes you happy. And if you're listening to your emotions, you can probably better determine what is going to make you happy in this life. But at the same time, balancing that with a rational mindset that goes, is this a rational or a right thing to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you there.
Dude, then I absolutely love it. I'm glad we agreed. I would only say listen back to this and see if you can find anywhere you need an outside actor. Because if your emotions are outside of yourself, then that's a claim that you need to back up. Mm-hmm. And it's a weird one.
Well, I'm just saying that there's common things, there's things that we share that we don't share at the moment that are kind of locked up in our heart that we keep pent up within us, that if we were to come to know that we all feel and think the same way, and when it comes to that little side of the voice, that maybe we'll come together rather than being competitive and exploitive towards each other.
Maybe.
I agree. I think if people empathize more and understand that we think and feel similarly, that will lead to greater empathy and be a nudge in a better direction for the future of humanity. That being said, Kyle, we have some other callers to get to. This call has been very good. I'm glad that it happened.
Oh, geez, we went long. You're right.
Yeah.
Geez, I'm usually the one who does that.
Yeah.
This is what you're saying.
Yeah, I know that you think that that's true. But we're going to go ahead and let you go, and go ahead, keep in touch online. You can find all the places to contact us online in the description below, and we'll talk to you in the future. All right, Kyle?
All right. I appreciate your time and tolerance, and you have a great evening.
It was a good talk.
Yeah.
Take care, buddy.
All right, bye.
Lots of love.